Welcome to the Leading Together podcast, Insights for Delaware Startups. In each episode, we sit down with Delaware's top minds and leaders to share perspectives that help advance First Aid Educate's mission, which is capacity building, raising awareness, and really elevating school board leadership across the state. And today, we're fortunate to be joined by Monica Shockley Porter, who is a passionate advocate for community empowerment, something that's very important to First Aid Educate. She's an accomplished leader in communications, public education, and has a long history of public service. With 20 years of experience in social service, business development, and public relations, she has built a career that is really based on the understanding the importance about stronger communities and how strong communities, when we communicate effectively with them, create opportunities for everyone. So Monica moved here in 2019, and she's made an incredible impact in several different organizations, including Network Delaware, the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League, and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. She's a public relations specialist for the Capital School District, and she supports students, families, and educators every day. We'll talk about this a little bit more during the show, but Monica recently defended her dissertation on community organizing. And it's really just, I'm so happy that she'll become Dr. Shockley Porter, because it's a testament to what her belief is in the power of collaboration and grassroots action. So Monica, we're thrilled to have you today. Thank you so much. We're excited to talk about you, your work, your vision, and how communication and community engagement can really help transform public education.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for, the incredible work you're doing to strengthen community. You did this before you came to Delaware, and what you're doing here, it really does make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So your career spans several sectors. Right now you're in public education, but you've worked in business development, social services, public relations, but it's always been rooted in the community and community engagement. So what drew you to communications and public relations with respect to understanding the importance of community?
Absolutely. So transitioning to public relations and communications, especially in education, it was a natural fit for me. I spent many years working in mental health, working with families, then from directly working in social services and mental health with families, I transitioned to business development, where I was able to craft messaging and do a lot of outreach. So I was really looking for a way to use the skills that I have in a broader and more impactful way. So I wanted to be able to craft meaningful messages, work with larger populations of people. And it just was a good fit to transition to communications and to public relations.
And when you say, I love this term you just used, meaningful messaging, right? Can we unpack that a little bit? When you say that, what is it? A message, not all messages, I guess, are equal, right? Not all messages land the same way. So when you say meaningful message, what does that mean?
Absolutely. Meaningful messaging to me are messages that are going to resonate with who you're sending the messages to. So messages that are going to resonate with our community, giving them information that is important to them, that will be impactful, and which will also empower them for decision making as well. So I believe it's very important to be informed, and it's important for our communities to be informed as well.
And so how do you do that in your current role? Now you're working in education. Kind of what are the key topics, not particular to your district, but just in general, that you think are these meaningful messages that schools send to families?
So one of the most impactful messages I think that you can send are about the good things that are happening in education every day. I make it my duty to craft and create stories to really show the good things that are taking place within our education system. Also keeping parents and communities informed of happenings, current events, town halls, things that are taking place in the school. I always have this joke between me and my colleagues that I would rather over communicate than under communicate messages to our community. So just making sure that they're well informed and know what's going on, I think is important in all sectors.
Yeah, it is interesting too to just tie this back to school boards, which is the area that First Aid Educate is really focused on. Um, you'd rather over communicate, and and then I think it's a fabulous point. Boards. I watched a board meeting the other day, and it was as clear as day that the message was communicated. It was something about a budget, and the message was communicated. And I think that while everybody heard it, I don't know if everybody really heard it. And so
Mm,
sometimes you have to say things more than one time,
mhm.
because people process information differently, because we're so distracted by the number of emails and phone calls and text messages. So has that been your experience, that you find that the more that you say the same thing, people just get more opportunities to hear the message?
Absolutely. And I think it's important too to not just even when you're communicating to do it once, if you're communicating on social media, you don't
Mhm.
want to post an event that's coming up or a message just once. You want to post it several times. You want to send that email or that communication several times because the
Mhm.
first time it may not stick. So it's very important to for repetition. We know
Mhm.
even as students, right? Repetition helps us to learn. So definitely you want to be repetitive and you also want to be on brand with your
Mhm.
messaging as well.
Yeah. Yeah. They're great points. Um, let's flip the perspective a little bit inside of just still staying with public education, but maybe not from the communications point of view and connecting with
Mhm.
communities. But why do you think public education is important?
So, public education is very important. When I was an undergrad, our slogan, I went to Savannah State University, and the slogan for Savannah State University is "You can get anywhere from here."
Hmm.
So, that always had such an impact on me because it let me know, like, with education, like, I can do anything.
Mhm.
Education is empowering. It opens up doors for you that can be closed for you if you don't have education. And it gives you the tools to be able to be successful in life.
Mhm.
So, definitely with our education system, we are empowering families and empowering students to have the tools to live a healthy and productive life and
Mhm.
to reach their goals.
And how does the public education strengthen communities? I mean, that's for the individual, but how does it affect the community and where the school is located?
Yeah, I think public education is like a critical foundation for
Mhm.
our communities. It also, one thing about education is that it very much levels the playing field, right?
Yes. Yes.
When you have access to the same opportunities across the board, or when equity also comes into play, it fosters economic growth. It also reduces inequities and it brings about social cohesion as well. I
Mhm.
know communities are very important. I look at the collaboration between communities and schools, and I think it's one of the greatest collaborations that you can have. I mean, when that works,
Mhm.
it really works, and it's beneficial for everyone.
Mhm. So I want to go in our second segment, go a little bit deeper into this the community impact and strengthening communities and how education can do that. But just one quick question before we move off of communication: what are
Yeah.
some of the challenges in communication? What are some things that kind of really make this job tough?
So there are the fun parts of public relations that I absolutely love, right? There
Hmm.
are the parts where I get to go out, like today, I got a chance to go out and visit schools for school counseling week and take
Hmm.
photos of the counselors with their kiddos.
Sure.
And there are so many rewarding things about public relations and communications, but then there
Hmm.
are those sensitive things that come up, those
Hmm.
crisis communications that need to go
Hmm.
out. And you have to really be mindful and crafting and managing messaging in a way that is going to be beneficial, right?
Hmm.
And it's going to keep folks calm, but then you also want to have a layer of transparency as well when you're communicating
Hmm.
messaging to to parents and to communities. So I would say that's the tougher aspect of
Mm-hmm.
my position, or probably any public relations person.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fun when you're out there, taking photos and writing all the feel good messaging. But when those crisis situations come up, it can be, yeah, I can say stressful at the least. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great to have a communications expert on hand to help you manage that. I
Mhm.
think, it's what you say as much as, how you say it, and
Absolutely.
particularly for boards. Boards face a lot of, what might not be a crisis, like a medical emergency or a. I mean, there were snow days. That's not a crisis, but it is sort of an event, right?
Yeah.
Where you've got to make sure everybody knows what's going on. But there are dangerous things that happen sometimes in schools, and thank God there aren't those things here in Delaware. But there have been events, and so there's a need for boards to really be prepared to
Mhm.
communicate in that instance. And God willing, you'll never have the occasion to need to do it. But I do like what you're saying in terms of anticipating it,
Yes.
being ready and not reactive.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the most important factors, because when a crisis happens, you want to be prepared. You want to already have those things in place, protocols in place, so that
Hmm.
everyone knows what their role is and what needs to go out, what needs to be communicated. Every school district across the state should have a crisis communication plan. I would hope so.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
very, very important.
Yep, yep. And making sure everyone's has the same message and has the same information, because
Yeah.
that's equally problematic. If there's 7 people and there's 4 different things being said,
Mhm.
that's unnerving for folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about your dissertation. So congratulations again. Very, very happy that you did
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Can you share with the audience, like, why did you pick the topic of community organizing? What did you want to take away from this?
Yeah, so my heart has always been with the community since, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I'm just going to say since
Okay.
graduating from college.
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
always taken roles where I have worked and engaged in the community in my personal life, outside of
Mhm.
work. I do a lot of work for nonprofits. I sit on several nonprofit boards.
Mhm.
So community has always been important to me. So specifically, I had a chance to do my research on community organizers and how
Mhm.
intersectionality comes into play with
Mhm.
community organizers. And one of the biggest takeaways and recommendations that I have for anyone who's doing community organizing work is to make sure that the work encourages a look at how intersectionality comes into play with community work, and
Mhm.
ensuring that community work is inclusive, and
Mhm.
making sure that it's reflective of community
Mhm.
members. I think those were the biggest takeaways. And I really, I was pleased to work with Network Delaware
Mhm.
with this, which is, I mean, they do amazing
Amazing work. They
and
do.
in that field. So I just was really blessed throughout the process to really write about something that I was passionate about, be able to research about an
Mhm.
area that I'm passionate about. And yeah, defending was probably the highlight for me of 2024, to be able to
Mhm.
defend my dissertation and move on from that work and have learned
Yeah.
much.
That's great. Big shout out to Drew and to Network Delaware, because they
Yes.
just turned 8. I don't know if the audience
Yes,
knows that, but they recently
yes.
celebrated their 8th year. I love to see these things in Delaware that are sort of started by individuals and grow and can create positive changes in an ecosystem. They've done fabulous, fabulous work.
Yeah.
Um, So what is, before we go to that, because I'd like to talk a little bit about with the audience, like what is an organizer, right? What does that mean
Oh,
to be a
yes,
community
yes, yes.
organizer?
So, yeah, because we just take for granted, right, that everyone would
Mm-hmm.
know. So, the first time I even heard the term community organizer was when President Barack Obama came in office, and they said that he was
Mm-hmm.
a community
Oh,
organizer. And
right.
I'm like,
That's right. I remember that.
yeah,
Yep. I remember
I was
that.
like
Mm-hmm.
community organizer. But then once
What's that?
I
Right.
realized, I'm like, oh, I've been interacting with community organizers all my life. I just didn't know
Right.
that there was a title
Sure.
for folks who actually, do this work,
Uh-huh.
and even that there are careers in this work, right? Because I had known
Mm-hmm.
community organizers all my life, but could never really label it. So one of the most I always try to draw a contrast between an advocate and a community organizer. So, your
Mm-hmm.
advocate is a person who speaks on behalf of someone else. They're
Mm-hmm.
pushing
Mm-hmm.
issues that relate or standing up for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And your
Mm-hmm.
community organizers are saying, no, you have a voice. You
Mm-hmm.
can speak on your own behalf. So, your community organizers are actually the people who get communities together so that they can share their voice and so that
Mm-hmm.
they can um, bring their aspects or even their reality to the table. So that's usually how I will draw the distinction and explain to folks what a community organizer is. Because I'll say, hey, you know what an advocate is, right? And they'll say, oh, yeah, everyone's familiar with what an
Uh-huh.
advocate is. And I say,
Uh-huh.
well, an advocate speaks on behalf of someone. Community organizers get folks together so that they can speak on their own behalf.
Right, right. I think First Aid Educate, as an organization, tell
Mhm,
me if this lands, and fits this model that you're laying out, which I think is very helpful. First Aid Educate advocates for a stronger public education system through board governance and capacity building around, school board leadership.
mhm,
We we achieve our work, our mission, we execute against our mission by empowering members of the community to understand what boards are supposed to do, to encourage them to go to board meetings, to speak up at public comment, to understand how policy is made and how they can have their voice reflected in that. And so in a lot of ways, I think while the organization advocates for something, we execute our mission by empowering organizers and others in the community to use their voice.
It's great work.
Does that fit the model that you're laying out? One is an advocate I'm speaking on behalf of, but we're
Yeah.
also helping people speak for themselves.
Absolutely. And I'm in organizations that do both, right? I serve on the board for and have for some years for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and we advocate on behalf of Black
Mhm.
women and girls, right? That's
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
job. It's an advocacy organization, but then we also have programs like the Shad Carry program where
Mhm.
we are actually training women to be those advocates or to actually be organizers. So I
Right.
think, the two go hand in hand.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
definitely
Mhm.
do.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So, if we were to say, there were more organizers in schools across the state, in school districts across the state, right? If every community sort of had an organizer, what kinds of positive effects could that bring about if communities really did have these voices that were active and engaged the system?
Oh my goodness. So it would be wonderful. Like that makes me smile to think about
Uh-huh.
that because it's going to only bring more cohesion. It's going to
Mhm.
bring more voice to the community. It's going to help to bridge a gap. Many times people are fearful when you say the word organizing, but
Mhm.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing, right? Wouldn't you want to know what's going on in your community, what the voices in your community are saying? Wouldn't you
Sure.
want to bridge those gaps? One of the things that my research really drove home because my degree is in public administration is that community organizers are partners with public
Mhm.
administrators, right? If
Mm.
you have a good partnership with the community, it's only going to make you more successful in any role
Mhm.
that you have
Yeah.
in office. So I think it would be a wonderful thing. It really helps to bridge the gap and it really helps any board or any elected person to know what's going on in their community and to have a good partnership.
Yeah, and I'm really happy you said that. I think it's invaluable for the board members that are our audience, but also just the public in general. That the idea is that there's a collaboration here. People are working together.
Yes.
There's not one of us that's responsible for improving our current state of affairs, right? This is
Yes.
a shared effort.
Yes, absolutely.
Can we talk I mean, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the National Coalition of 100 Black Women and maybe share if someone's listening that doesn't know kind of what that work is. I'd love to give you an opportunity to share that with the audience too.
Sure. So without being the unofficial spokesperson of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, because really only our president can speak on behalf of the organization, but I can share information regarding what our motto is. We do advocate on behalf of Black women and girls. One of the projects that I have been most proud of is that the coalition actually engaged in a study, the first of its kind, on Black girls in Delaware. And it was in partnership with the University of Delaware and Delaware State University. And over the time period of the pandemic, we did research about the state of Black girls and what was going on with Black girls. And then from that research, we have tailored our programming to address the topics that have come out of that research. So I would encourage anyone who's watching to Google the NCBW chapter of Delaware and see the great work that is taking place with the women in the chapter. We've been really blessed to have some great partnerships with different state agencies. Oh, I left out the Department of Health was also involved. The Delaware Department of Health was also involved in that study as well. And then prior to that, we had done a study on the state of Black women in Delaware, focused on mortality rates of Black women in the state of Delaware. So yeah, the maternal health crisis was really on the forefront some years ago, and then we focus more on Black girls as of late.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think what's really important, for the audience who might not have known about that work, I think the study and a publication is incredibly valuable. That's one of the things First Aid Educate is really trying to push in 2025 is we're going to have white papers, we're going to have reports. People, it's a good reference point. And it's a nice transition to our third segment today is talking about how stronger communities, we can build stronger communities through communication and leadership. And a lot of what you just described is just that. It's leadership and communication. The organization identified an issue, produced a report. Now you're communicating about it, you're sharing it with the community, and now the community can use that. So let's talk through a little bit. What's your view on how the community, family, local leaders, organizations, how can everybody work together to create the next best, iteration of what we have in Delaware?
Yeah, so I think improved communication is definitely going to be key, right? Communication on both sides. And communication is a two-way street, right? You communicate and you also have to listen, right? So I think both sides coming to the table, being able to listen to one another. One of the things that I've been so proud of being a part of Capital School District is the various stakeholder meetings that we have had since I've been here. That's something that I believe our school board is really passionate about, is making sure that they hear from the community. So, and having that collaborative spirit as well, right? Not just making decisions without seeing what's going to be best for the community is always going to be the way to go. And then also having diverse communication channels. I know for some families, they love the social media. They love a good social media message, right? They're going to be on their phones all the time. Some people prefer text, some people prefer email, some people prefer phone call. Just making sure that you have those diverse modes of communication as well to get your messaging out.
Yeah, I think the diverse communication channels, I think, and what we said earlier about the same message multiple times. So the
Yes.
same message multiple times in multiple ways through multiple channels. But I did want to point out that just the beauty in your statement about communication being a two-way street, and it's
Mhm.
not it is listening as well as it is verbally expressing something. And I think it's very, very important, especially for school boards, that the members listen to each other, and
Mhm.
that they listen to the community, and that they listen to the educators and the administrators, right? So it's a complex network with a lot of stakeholders.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and stakeholder engagement is important. So I think with any organization, you want to always make sure that you're engaging your stakeholders and
Hmm.
seeing what they have to say, getting a pulse, getting a temperature on
Sure.
how they're feeling about things is so important with,
Hmm.
any organization across the board.
Yeah. And that I wanted to ask you another question, just jumping from a jumping off point from what you just said about identifying who are these relevant parties, and how do we reach them? How do we hear? How do we engage with them and make an opportunity for them to share? But you've also done so much work in the community, social services, and what have you found really motivates people? What is it that gets people, in the community to say, yeah, I want to do that? Or how do we mobilize people? What's inspiring? What have you seen that really works to bring people to the table?
I think when people really know that you care, right? It's a
Yeah.
feeling. Like it's a
Mhm.
feeling when they know that you care, when they feel welcomed.
Mhm. Mhm.
Even when I was doing my dissertation work, one of the takeaways that I learned about Network Delaware, and I know I felt it when I first went to my first network meeting, right?
Mhm.
Is that I felt like I was needed there. I felt
Mm.
welcome. So if
Mhm.
you create an atmosphere and a climate where others' opinions are welcome, their presence
Mhm.
is welcome, they feel that they matter, those are going to be your best opportunities to capture people, along with communication, right? Because I found out about
Mhm.
Network Delaware because someone forwarded me an email about all of the meetings that were coming up. And I was like, oh, this
Right.
seems pretty cool. I should get involved
Yeah.
with this.
Right.
So if that communication wasn't there, somebody would have like said, "Oh, this is a cool organization," but
Mhm.
without having that forwarded email with that information, I wouldn't have been able to register for the event
Exactly.
and show up for the first time. So I
Yep.
think it all goes hand in hand, the communication piece, and then how we show up when people enter the room.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I
Yeah.
think being needed, feeling welcome, that
Mhm.
those are very important aspects of it. Another element is the notion of building trust among the
Oh,
people who are
yes,
gathered.
yes.
What's been your experience around what seems to work well to build trust around a group of maybe diverse people who
Mhm.
diverse in whatever way we want to look at, right? Age, height, education, whatever. It really doesn't, people are different, and they have different experiences, and when they come together, if they don't know each other, how do we give them an environment where they feel safe and can trust each other?
That is beautiful. So trust is very important. I think trust comes through consistency, right? It takes
Mm,
time to build
mhm,
trust. And then also, trust is gained through transparency, right? We trust
mhm.
people who we feel are telling us the truth,
The truth.
who are
Yeah.
transparent
Yep.
with us. So I think those are the ingredients, right? Because there's no one way to build trust.
Sure.
But I think with that transparency piece, which is so important,
Mhm.
making sure that their voice is heard, right? That you're
Mhm.
consistent. And also, just making sure that you stand on what you say, that
Mhm.
um, I think all of those things build trust.
Yep, yep. I would definitely agree. And it's great that you articulated it so clearly, because I
Mhm.
think it's unfair to assume that everyone knows these things, right? Like
Mhm.
I genuinely asked you that question, like what this is your area of expertise. It'd be
Mhm.
helpful for you to tell me. And I think there are 100 individuals that are seated in board chairs or board seats, across the state, and
Mhm.
I think it's hard to know everything. So I want to just thank you for sharing these little tidbits from your background,
Mhm.
that are really, they've been helpful for me as a professional. And I know that they're going to help the community that we want to serve.
Yes. And
Yeah.
one of the last points that I wanted to make too, as you were talking, I was thinking about just being inclusive as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that environments are inclusive is another way to build trust. Because if you feel excluded and you don't feel included in an
Sure.
environment, like how am I going to trust you if I don't feel like you are
Exactly.
accepting of
Yep.
me? So that's another point to
Yep.
how to build trust as well.
Yep. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have one closing question for you as we wrap
Sure.
up. And what's your vision for how this could work, right? Lay out what if it was ideal or the next best version of this. How are schools and districts and parents and families and students and educators and community organizers and advocates, how's everybody working together? What does that look like?
Sure. So for me and my perfect vision of how this would
Mhm.
work, right? If I could just wave a magic wand and make it all go my way, definitely a word that you mentioned earlier, collaboration, right?
Mhm.
Collaboration between all of the stakeholders, between parents, families, communities,
Mhm.
boards, teachers, like everyone just coming together and just really looking at holistic approaches to
Mhm.
education. There's a something that I hear a lot about the whole child, right? There's this
Mhm. Mhm.
idea
Mhm.
of the whole child. So making sure that we're looking at mental health, physical health, social, emotional well-being, and just pulling together resources and working together. I think collaboration is key. None of this can be
Mhm.
done without good collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to take all of us. For
Yes,
sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. Well, Monica, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for your commitment to Delaware's communities, for the work you do with community organizing, and for all the incredible supports that you provide to a public education system that is serving hundreds of thousands of kids. And I'm very, very grateful. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for being part of another episode. And we look forward to seeing you next time.